You know, it's a strange thing. We all start with the same 24 hours. Rich people, poor people, successful, struggling. Same sun rises on all of us. But here's what I learned. It's not the hours that change your life. It's what you do with them. And if you're not careful, those same hours that could build your fortune will quietly steal it away. Now I want you to think about something deep, something that doesn't come up in casual conversation. If you stay broke, it won't be because of your boss. If you stay broke, it won't be because of taxes or inflation. If you stay broke, it'll be because you never learned the principles. The principles that the wealthy live by and the average ignore. Today, I want to hand you the hidden formula. One, the 3% live by and the 97% ignore. Today, we'll uncover the wealth principles that govern every fortune, the daily disciplines that turn coins into capital, and the mental shift that must happen before the wealth ever arrive. Let me tell you something. If someone handed you $1 million, but you hadn't developed the habits, the discipline, the thinking to manage it, chances are that money would soon be gone. And studies prove it. People who win the lottery often end up broke within just a few short years. Why? Because they got the money without becoming the person. And without the person, the money has no foundation to stand on. I remember when I was broke, and I don't just mean financially. I was broke in mindset, broke in routine, broke in vision. And a mentor told me something that changed everything. He said, if you want more, you must become more. Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. I took that to heart. I stopped focusing on the bank account and started focusing on the man. Because here's the truth. Your income will never exceed your personal growth for long. It might get lucky and spike, but it will always settle to the level of the person holding it. So I went to work. I didn't go to work on my job. I went to work on myself. I read every book I could find on personal development. I listened to the wise. I studied philosophy, history, wealth, habits. I learned how the wealthy think, how they behave, what disciplines they master. And little by little, I changed. Not just what I knew, but how I showed up, how I planned, how I executed. I developed new standards. I became a new man. And as I changed, so did my income. See, that's the real magic. Wealth is attracted to value. And value is something you cultivate. It's something you build brick by brick in the quiet of your daily decisions. It shows up in how early you rise, how you treat others, how well you manage what little you have before you're entrusted with more. Becoming wealthy is less about accumulation and more about transformation. You have to transform yourself into someone who can handle wealth with wisdom, with stability, with vision. Let me give you an example. I once met a young man who said, "I want to be a millionaire." I said, "That's great. Now tell me, what's your plan to become one?" He looked confused. "I'm just hoping for a big break," he said. And I told him, that's like hoping for a garden without planting the seeds. Hoping isn't a strategy. Becoming is. I asked him to list the qualities of someone who earns $1 million. He said, disciplined, focused, skilled, consistent. I said, good. Now become that man and the money will follow. That's the lesson. We spend so much time chasing the result when the real reward is found in the process. You don't need to chase wealth. If you become valuable enough, wealth will come find you. And when it does, you'll be ready to manage it, multiply it, and use it to create more value, not just for yourself, but for others. It's like this. If someone took all your money away but left you with your skills, your mindset, your habits, how long would it take before you had it back? That's the test. And if the answer is not long, then you've got real wealth. Because the true measure of wealth is not money, it's mastery. Mastery over self, mastery over your habits, your mind, your character. That's what lasts. That's what no market crash or job loss can take from you. So don't just chase $1 million. Become the kind of person worthy of $1 million life. Grow yourself into someone of value and you'll never have to worry about value coming back to you. It always does. Life has a way of rewarding the person who shows up ready, disciplined, and transformed. And that's when wealth becomes inevitable. I want to share with you one of the greatest secrets. The wealthy live by a secret hidden in plain sight. Every dollar that passes through your hands is a seed. Not just a coin, not just a piece of paper, not just a number in your bank account. It's a seed. And just like any seed, it holds potential, not for more spending, but for growth. And the question is not, what can I buy with it? The question is, where can I plant this so it grows? Now, I know the temptation. You work hard, the paycheck comes in, and the world is full of things calling your name: new shoes, gadgets, meals out, little luxuries. And hey, I'm not against enjoying the fruits of your labor. But let me offer you a better plan. Instead of eating all your fruit, plant some. If you spend everything you earn, you're not just spending money, you're spending your future. Let me tell you what I learned early on. If your money isn't working while you sleep, you'll be working while you're sick, you'll be working while you're tired. You'll be working long past the years you should have been free. Because when every dollar is spent and nothing is planted, nothing grows. And if nothing grows, you have no harvest. You have labor, but no leverage. I remember when I first started to earn more than I needed to survive. Not much, but just a little extra. I had a choice. Do I raise my lifestyle or do I raise my investments? I chose the latter, and it wasn't easy. While my friends were upgrading cars and dining out, I was reading investment books, learning about compound interest, and putting my extra dollars into little seeds, a bit in a mutual fund, a bit in a side business, a bit in savings. And I'll be honest with you, at first it felt small, insignificant even. But small seeds become big trees if you're patient. You see, it's not about the amount, it's about the habit, the discipline, the philosophy. Turning $1 into a worker, not just a spender, is how you begin to buy back your time. That's what wealth really is. Time, freedom, control, options. And you won't get that by spending everything you earn. You get it by investing in the future version of yourself. And I often say, if all your income depends on your presence, you don't have a business, you have a job. And if your only plan is to work until you're 65, pray you stay healthy, and hope the pension is enough, that's not a plan, that's a gamble. But if you begin now, wherever you are, however small, to train your dollars to work harder than you do, that's when the game changes. Let me ask you something. What if every time you earned $10, you kept $2 not to spend but to plant? What if you started building tiny streams of income, nothing huge at first, just something that trickles while you sleep? That trickle becomes a stream, and streams become rivers. That's how wealth is built, not by huge leaps, but by consistent planting. Earn, invest, multiply, repeat. Now, of course, not every investment grows immediately. Some seeds take time, some don't sprout at all. But don't let that stop you. A wise farmer doesn't stop planting because one crop failed. He studies the soil, improves his technique, and plants again. You do the same. Learn about where your dollars can grow. Real estate, stocks, business, knowledge. Yes, knowledge too. An investment in your mind may be the most profitable seed of all. And while you're planting seeds, let me offer you another truth. Wealth doesn't come from what you earn. It comes from what you keep and what you grow. You could earn a fortune and still end up broke if every dollar is spent. And you could earn modestly, yet end up financially free if you plant wisely. So the next time you hold a dollar, treat it with respect. Ask it, where can I send you so you bring back 4 of your friends? That's what investors do. That's what builders do. That's what the wealthy do. Don't spend your seeds on shiny distractions. Plant them with vision and patience. Let your dollars become employees that show up to work every day, even while you sleep. Because the day will come, and sooner than you think, when you'll wake up and realize your money has been working harder than you ever did. And that, my friend, is the day you stop chasing income and start enjoying freedom. Let me share with you a truth I learned early, and one that changed the entire direction of my life. You can't out-earn poor thinking. You can pile up all the dollars you want, but if your philosophy is wrong, if your mindset is limited, if your thinking is small, then all that income will slip right through your fingers. A $100,000 income won't fix a $10 mindset. In fact, it might only make the cracks more obvious. Now, I've met folks who earn well, sharp people, hard workers, good at what they do. But despite all that income, they're stressed, they're broke, and they're confused. Why? Because money doesn't change the root, it only magnifies it. If your thinking is shallow, if your decisions are reactionary, if your habits are undisciplined, then more income just becomes more fuel for the fire. You see, you don't rise to your income, you fall to your philosophy. I remember in my early years, before I made any real money, I had to come to terms with this. I used to think, if only I had more money, things would be better. But then I noticed something strange. Even when I did make a little more, my problems didn't go away, they just got more expensive. Bigger bills, bigger mistakes, bigger headaches. That's when the realization hit me. The problem wasn't income, it was me, my decisions, my habits, my thinking. So I stopped chasing more income and started building a better philosophy. I started asking questions. What do the wealthy think about every day that the average person ignores? How do they make decisions? What do they read? Who do they listen to? And most importantly, how do they think about money? That journey led me to study wealth, not just income, because the two are not the same. Wealth is what you keep and grow. Income is what you earn and often spend. I started understanding things like value, leverage, compound interest, delayed gratification. These weren't just financial strategies. They were mental upgrades. Think of it this way. Your mind is the factory. Your thoughts are the workers. If your factory produces scarcity, fear, and excuses, it won't matter how much raw material you bring in. You'll just keep turning good income into poor results. But if your factory starts producing vision, discipline, and strategy, then even a little income starts to multiply. I once met a man who earned 3 times what I did, yet he was drowning in debt, and another man who earned less than me, yet had savings, investments, and a plan. The difference? Not the paycheck, the thinking. One had a consumer mindset. The other had a builder's mindset. One thought in terms of survival. The other thought in terms of multiplication. So if you want to change your finances, start with your thoughts. What do you believe about money? Do you see it as a tool or a trap, a responsibility or a curse? Do you think rich people are lucky or strategic? Are you blaming the economy, or are you studying the rules of wealth? Your answers to those questions will shape every decision you make. And let's not forget, the language you use around money reveals your mindset. I hear people say, I'm just not good with money. That's not a fact. That's a belief. And beliefs can be changed. I used to say the same thing until I realized I had never actually studied money. I had studied history, science, literature, but not money. No wonder I didn't understand it. So I started reading 1 page a day, listening to 1 lesson a week. Little by little, I rewired the way I thought. Eventually, the money followed. Not overnight, but inevitably. Because when your thinking improves, your decisions improve. And when your decisions improve, your outcomes improve. That's the progression. That's the real formula. Don't start with income. Start with insight. Fix the philosophy, and the money takes care of itself. Now, I know it's tempting to focus on the paycheck, the raise, the opportunity. And yes, those things matter. But never forget this. A poor mindset will waste a great opportunity. And a rich mindset can turn even a small opportunity into something extraordinary. You want to build lasting wealth? Then start with the one thing no one can take from you, your thinking. Because once your mind is rich, your bank account will eventually catch up, and not the other way around. Let me tell you something that changed my entire approach to earning. Profits are better than wages. Now, don't get me wrong, wages are important. They put bread on the table, they pay the rent, They keep the lights on. Wages are noble. They represent time traded for value. But here's the truth. Wages will make you a living, and that's fine. But profits will make you a fortune, and that's exciting. I used to work for wages, hour after hour, day after day, and I was thankful for it. It taught me discipline. It taught me punctuality. It gave me a foundation. But after a while, I started to realize something. No matter how many hours I worked, there was a ceiling, a limit to how far I could go. Why? Because time is limited. You only get 24 hours in a day. And when you trade those hours for dollars, the equation stays the same. Work more, earn more, but only to a point. Eventually, you run out of hours. But then someone sat me down and introduced a different idea. What if, instead of just working for money, I started building something that worked for me? What if I created something once and got paid over and over again? That's when I discovered the magic of profit, of building a system, a product, a service that could multiply without my direct effort every hour. I remember when I started my first little side business. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't big, it didn't impress anyone in the beginning, but I put in the work. Evenings, weekends, early mornings, slowly, I shaped it into something that started making a little money. Just a little at first, then a little more. Then I looked up one day and realized, while I was sleeping, that little business was still working. While I was out at dinner, it was still earning. While I was living my life, it was out there creating profit. And that's when the lights really came on. I saw that the key wasn't just working hard, it was working smart. It was building leverage. It was creating something that scaled beyond my hours. Now, maybe you're thinking, I don't know how to start a business. You don't have to know everything. You just have to start with something, asterisk, a skill, a service, a little product, a talent, anything that can solve a problem for someone else. Because here's the secret, people pay for value. They don't care if it came from a giant company or a guy working out of his garage. If you solve a problem, you get paid. And when you solve that problem well enough and often enough, the profits begin. Now, don't expect it to happen overnight. That's not how it works. You plant the seed today, you water it tomorrow, you protect it from weeds and storms, and eventually, you see the harvest. Most people give up before that happens. They expect a fortune in a week. But wealth is built through patience, consistency, and discipline, the same values you needed when you worked for wages, now redirected toward building profit. Another key idea I learned. Profits come from serving more people. If you're earning wages, you're serving one company, maybe a few clients, but with a business, with an idea, with a product, you can serve 100, 1,000, 1,000,000. And when you start thinking in terms of scale, your entire mindset shifts. You stop thinking about how to earn more per hour and start thinking about how to add more value to more people. I've always believed that wealth comes to those who learn how to serve better and serve more. That's what business is, organized service. And once you grasp that, you'll never be satisfied with wages alone again. So my challenge to you is simple. Keep working your job, be excellent at it. But build something on the side. Start small, learn, adjust, grow. The goal is to create a vehicle that can one day outpace your wage income, not by working more hours, but by creating more value. Because once your profits exceed your wages, you've crossed a bridge most people never even see. You've stepped from survival to security, from making a living to building a fortune. And that's where the real freedom begins. Success leaves clues. That's the truth, plain and simple. And the moment I understood that, I stopped wandering around in the dark, hoping that success would somehow find me. I stopped believing in luck as a strategy. Instead, I picked up the habit that changed my life, studying success. If someone else had built wealth from nothing, why couldn't I? And more importantly, how did they do it? Now, let me take you back. I was in my mid-22nd, broke, behind on my promises, behind on my bills, and more importantly, behind on my own potential. And I remember thinking, There's got to be a better way. I looked around and saw people who started with less than I did, but they were living in better houses, driving better cars, living lives of freedom while I was making excuses. Then it hit me. If they could do it, maybe I could too. But only if I was willing to stop guessing and start learning. See, life is not a guessing game. It's a tracing game. Trace the steps. Follow the map. Find the patterns. Because every successful person has left behind a trail in their habits, their disciplines, their decisions, and those clues are all over the place for anyone who's paying attention. So I found mentors. I read their books, I listened to their tapes, I watched how they moved, how they worked, what they valued, what they ignored. I began to model their thinking, not just admire their results. Because here's what I learned. It's not just about what they did, it's about how they thought. The action is just the byproduct of the mindset. If you adopt their philosophy, the behaviors follow. Now, maybe you say, I don't know any wealthy people. That's no excuse. Their wisdom is in the pages of books, in old recordings, in interviews, in biographies. One of the most powerful moments in my life was when I picked up a book written by a self-made millionaire. That man didn't know me, but through the pages, he taught me how to think about money, how to value time, how to invest, how to multiply. He left clues, and I picked them up. Let me give you an example. One of my mentors had a simple philosophy. Never spend more than 70 cents of every dollar. He said, live on 70, give 10, save 10, and invest the rest. That sounded simple, but I started doing it. And sure enough, over time, I started to feel more control. My money stopped vanishing, my savings began to grow, and eventually my investments began to feed me. That wasn't magic, it was a clue, a proven principle passed down. And because I picked it up and put it into practice, it worked for me too. Wealth isn't hidden behind a curtain. It's hiding in plain sight in the daily disciplines of those who already have it. The problem is most people don't want to study. They want results, but not research. They want success, but not the strategy. They want the harvest, but they skip the planting. But if you really want to change your financial life, you've got to become a student, a serious one. Study the wealthy, not to envy them, but to understand them. What do they believe about money? How do they treat time? What do they do in the first hour of their day? What do they read? Who do they associate with? What did they sacrifice to get where they are? Because success is never accidental. It's engineered. It's built brick by brick, habit by habit. And if someone else has built a life of wealth and freedom, then that blueprint exists. You don't have to invent your own. In fact, trying to reinvent the wheel is often just an excuse for not doing the work. Don't try to be original before you're effective. First, get effective by following the proven path. Then, when you've mastered the basics, you can add your style. That's what I did. I took the clues, I copied the philosophies, I practiced the principles, and slowly but surely, the results came. Not overnight, not in a flash, but gradually the kind of progress you can count on because it's built on truth. So here's the question, whose clues are you following? If your current path isn't leading to wealth, then maybe it's time to stop and trace the steps of someone who's already made it. Find a model, study their ways, apply their mindset. Because once you discover that success isn't mysterious, but methodical, everything changes. And remember, if someone else has done it, so can you. All you need is the humility to learn, the discipline to follow, and the courage to keep going until the clues lead you home. One of the great principles of life is this: the few who do are the envy of the many who watch. Most people sit in the stands and watch the game of life go by. They talk about the players, they critique the strategies, they complain about the score, but they never step onto the field. They never take the shot. And when you ask them why, they'll give you 1,000 reasons, but none that hold up to daylight. See, the truth is, it doesn't take much to be in the few. Not genius, not luck, not special talent, just a decision to do. To do the reading, to do the saving, to do the investing, to do the learning, to do the uncomfortable things that most won't. because most won't, and that's your edge. When I was young and broke and discouraged, I used to think, maybe someday it'll all just come together. But then I met a mentor who changed my thinking. He said, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. Don't hope for more, become more. And then he pointed to a truth that shifted everything. Look around, he said. Most people won't do the simple disciplines. They won't read one book a month. They won't save 10% of their income. They won't sit still for 30 minutes to plan their week. But if you do, if you'll just do, you'll separate yourself from the crowd in no time. I took that to heart. I wasn't the smartest, the fastest, or the most gifted. But I could read a chapter a day. I could put $10 aside every week. I could spend 20 minutes each night reviewing my goals. That didn't take brilliance, it just took commitment. And slowly, I became part of the few. It's not crowded at the top. You know why? Because very few are willing to do what it takes to climb. Most are looking for shortcuts. They want the reward without the work. They want the applause without the practice. But life doesn't work that way. Wealth doesn't respond to wishes. It responds to disciplines. And discipline, while often uncomfortable in the short term, delivers rewards that compound over time. I remember a man I once knew had the same job I had, made the same money I made, lived in the same neighborhood, but 10 years later his life looked the same and mine didn't. Why? Not because I had better luck, not because I had better connections, but because I started doing the little things that compound. I invested instead of spending. I read instead of watching television. I built relationships instead of wasting time on gossip. That was the difference. He stayed with the many. I stepped into the few. Now you got to ask yourself, where are you in this equation? Are you watching or are you doing? Are you talking about your dreams or are you building them brick by brick? Because here's the secret. The path to wealth is open, wide open, but it demands a price. Not in money, in decisions, in discipline, in courage. And the beautiful truth is, the moment you decide to do what most people won't, you gain what most people can't, you become the one they talk about, the one they wonder about, the one they say, how did he do it? But you'll know. You'll know it was early mornings, late nights, quiet study, persistent action, delayed gratification, and you'll smile, not because it was easy, but because it was worth it. So, be part of the few. The few who wake up early and plan their day. The few who budget wisely and invest deliberately. The few who never stop learning, who surround themselves with wisdom, who don't chase trends but build timeless value. The few who choose action over excuses and results over recognition. Because while the many talk, the few transform. While the many scroll, the few study. While the many hope, the few execute, and while the many spend, the few build. Build not just wealth, but character. Not just assets, but legacy. And one day, not far from now, when others are still hoping, still watching, still envying, you'll be living. Not perfectly, not without struggle, but with freedom, with options, with purpose, because you chose to do. And the reward for being among the few is never just money. It's who you become. It's the life you shape. It's the peace you gain knowing you didn't settle, that you took the road less traveled. And because you did, everything changed. One of the greatest misunderstandings about wealth is that people think it arrives all at once, like some grand event, a windfall, a big break, a sudden discovery. But let me tell you, wealth doesn't show up in a flash. It shows up in layers. It's not built in a day, it's built daily. See, your financial future isn't written in some dramatic moment. It's written in the quiet, consistent disciplines of your everyday life. Not in the once-in-a-while effort, but in the every single day decision. That's where wealth begins, in the small, almost invisible actions that seem to mean nothing in the moment, but add up to everything in the long run. Now, I'll tell you from experience, I didn't wake up one day and suddenly become wealthy. There was no magical deposit into my bank account, no lightning strike of success. What happened was, I learned to change what I did daily. I stopped leaving my finances to chance and started shaping them with purpose. I began doing the things most folks overlook because they seem too simple to matter. I remember when I first got serious, I was broke not just financially, but mentally. I was living on excuses and spending every dollar I made. Then one day I realized that if I didn't change what I did daily, I'd keep getting what I always got. So I started small. I tracked every dollar. Not glamorous, but it gave me clarity. I saved a little from every paycheck, not much, but it built the habit. I read 10 pages of a good financial book every night, not enough to become a genius, but enough to start changing how I thought. And here's what happened. One small habit led to another. Saving became investing. Learning became earning. Clarity turned into strategy. And over time, without fanfare, my finances began to shift. Not overnight, but over time, because that's how it works. Most people are waiting for the big moment, the raise, the business idea, the perfect opportunity, but they miss the real formula. Small steps taken daily in the right direction, repeated with discipline. That's the secret. And it's not just about money. It's about who you become in the process. You don't build wealth by trying to leap tall buildings in a single bound. You build it like you'd build a house, one brick, one board, one nail at a time. A little effort here, a little discipline there. Not perfect days, just consistent days. Because it's not the intensity of the effort that matters most, it's the consistency. Think about a garden. You don't throw seeds in the ground and come back the next day expecting a harvest. You plant, you water, you nurture, you pull weeds, you give it light. And if you do it daily, the harvest takes care of itself. Wealth is no different. The seeds are your choices. The water is your discipline. And the sun is your mindset. Together, over time, they produce results. And here's something to remember. Doing the small things is just as easy as not doing them. It's easy to save $5. It's also easy to spend it. It's easy to read 10 pages. It's also easy to scroll your phone. It's easy to skip the budget, skip the plan, skip the journal. And every time you do, you trade your future for a little comfort in the present. But the few who become wealthy, they don't skip. They show up. They do the small things others overlook. They understand that the price of financial success isn't paid in big dramatic moments. It's paid in small disciplines, repeated faithfully over time. So ask yourself, what are you doing daily to shape your future? What small habits have you built into your life that point toward wealth? Because if you can't name them, they probably aren't there. And if they're not there, neither is the foundation for lasting success. Don't wait for motivation to strike. Don't wait for the right time. Build your wealth like you'd build a wall brick by brick. Save even when it feels pointless. Invest even when it's small. Learn even when no one's watching. Because each of those small actions is a deposit into your future. You won't see the payoff tomorrow, and that's the challenge. But one day down the road, you'll wake up to a life shaped by quiet, invisible victories. And while others wonder how you did it, you'll know. You built it daily, not in a day. One of the greatest disciplines I ever learned, one that changed the course of my life, was the discipline of imagination. Now, I don't mean fantasy or wishful thinking. I mean real, vivid, deliberate visualization. You've got to see the life you want long before it shows up in your bank account. Because if you can't see it in your mind, you won't hold it in your hands. Let me ask you a simple question. When was the last time you saw your future? I mean, really saw it, felt it, walked around in it, even if only in your mind? You see, the mind moves the body, and the vision moves the mind. If your vision is small, your discipline will be weak. But if your vision is clear and strong and emotional, you'll find a kind of energy and resolve you didn't know you had. Back when I was broke and working hard just to stay afloat, I started a practice that seemed silly at first. Each morning before I checked the mail or the bank balance, I would sit quietly and see the life I wanted. Not just the money I saw, the house, the peace of mind, the generosity, the travel, the freedom. I felt the carpet beneath my feet, heard the laughter in the hallways, tasted the meals we'd share with friends. I visualized every part of that life as if it were already mine, and I did it daily. You see, without vision, the little things lose meaning. Why wake up early? Why skip that expense? Why read another book? If you don't know what you're aiming for, you'll drift. But when you can see it clearly, emotionally, then every sacrifice has a purpose. Discipline becomes a tool, not a punishment. Saving money isn't pain, it's planting. Learning isn't obligation, it's strategy. Delaying gratification isn't loss, it's leverage. I remember a young man who came to me once and said, "Mr. Rohn, I just can't stay consistent." I asked him, "What's your vision?" He said, "Well, I don't know. Make more money, I guess." And I said, "Son, that's not a vision, that's a wish. Wishes are weak. But vision, real, sensory, emotional vision that's strong, that will pull you through boredom and doubt and delay. That will pull you past fear and over obstacles. You don't have to be rich to start imagining wealth. You don't have to have the car to picture yourself driving it. You don't have to own the business to walk through it in your mind. That's the gift of imagination. It costs nothing, but it yields everything. And the more you practice it, the more you train your subconscious to believe it's possible. The mind will start to organize your actions to match your picture. But if the picture is missing, so is the motivation. Now here's the trick. You've got to do it daily. Not once a year, not once a month when you're inspired, daily. Just like brushing your teeth or planning your day. You don't plant a seed and walk away. You water it, you tend it, you protect it. That's how vision works. You've got to water it with daily focus. Some people say, "Well, Jim, that sounds like daydreaming." And I say, no, daydreaming is what you do when you're avoiding life. Visualization is what you do to create it. There's a world of difference. One is escape, the other is preparation. You want a better financial life? Don't just hope for it. Don't just work harder. First, see it. Wake up and picture it in detail. Before you pick up your phone or read the news, close your eyes and rehearse the wealth you're building. Walk through the home you're designing. Hear the applause at the business you're launching. Feel the pride when you write that first big check for someone in need. Make it so real in your mind that you'd swear it already happened. Because what the mind rehearses, the body pursues. What you visualize, you magnetize. And what you feel emotionally, you begin to move toward, even when the road is long. Now, why is this so important? Because life will try to pull you back. There'll be bills and setbacks and naysayers and slow days. But if your vision is strong, if you're anchored in that mental picture, you'll stay the course. Discipline doesn't start with rules. It starts with reasons. And reasons come from vision. So I'll tell you what I learned. Before you ask, "What should I do today?" first ask, "What do I see for tomorrow?" That answer will shape your choices. That picture will fuel your habits. That daily vision, quiet, consistent, emotional, that's the hidden force that makes wealth not only possible but inevitable. And the best part? You can start that today. Let me leave you with this. Wealth is not something you stumble upon. It's something you build with intention, one disciplined day at a time. Most people are hoping it will somehow show up, like a surprise in the mailbox. But wealth doesn't respond to hope. It responds to habits. It responds to vision. It responds to discipline, learning, patience, and the steady courage to keep going when it would be easier to quit. You've now seen the principles, the hidden formulas the 3% use, not because they're lucky, not because they're smarter, but because they do what the rest refuse to do. They think differently. They act with purpose. They plant seeds daily. They don't wait for permission. They don't get distracted by the noise. And most importantly, they don't live by what they feel. They live by what they've decided. So I'll ask you today, what will you decide? Will you keep waiting for the right time? Or will you start right now with what you have, where you are? Will you finally take control of your financial life or let it drift another year? Start tracking your money. Set a goal with a deadline. Pay yourself first. Visualize your future daily. Invest in your mind. Share your lessons. Build something that outlives you. You don't have to be perfect, but you do have to begin. Wealth is not a mystery, it's a discipline, and you don't find it by accident. You earn it through philosophy, patience, and daily action. So take the first step today, not tomorrow, today. That's the difference between wishing and wealth, between staying broke and building a future that sets you free.